And welcome in everyone to this episode of Craze's Corner. We got a great discussion segment coming up, so make sure you guys stay tuned to that. We're going to be talking about different fantasy impacts from week one, and do we think they're going to impact season long, or were they just a 1 week thing? So you're definitely going to want to watch that. But let's get right into some news. The biggest news of the week: we had the Raheem Mostert injury. He announced that he's going to miss the entire season. He's going to have surgery to repair his knee. Injuries just keep stacking up for this guy. He constantly seems to be injured. He did have a stronghold on the running game in San Francisco. Who will we see take over? We're going to talk about that backfield a little bit later. Then we have the Jerry Jeudy injury. He's diagnosed with a high ankle sprain. I've heard anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks to 4 to 8 weeks. So I'd say expect him to be back around 4 to 5 weeks. While he's gone, Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler are two guys to pay attention to. I think Tim Patrick will probably see more targets, but Hamler's a big play guy, so you definitely have to watch out for him because if he gets a couple big plays from Teddy Bridgewater, he could have a monster week. And the third story, arguably the biggest impact, is the Ryan Fitzpatrick injury. He's going to be out about 8 weeks with a hip injury. They currently have Taylor Heineke as their backup quarterback, so they're going to be rolling with him. They do play Thursday night this week against the Giants, so it's a great opportunity for Heineke to show what he's made of. He did play for the Washington football team last year in the playoffs against the Bucs, and he looked really well. As a Panthers fan, he was on our team for a bit. I think he's got the talent, and he's got the ability to succeed in Washington right now. There are some rumors going around, people suggesting that they should look into the veteran quarterbacks on the free agency. To compete with Heineke, I would probably stay away from that. I believe Heineke can be the guy he proved last year in the playoffs to me, that he's got the abilities. He's athletic enough to make some plays on the ground. But Cam Newton is one name to monitor here with his history with Ron Rivera. We could see Cam Newton to Washington. But what do you guys think about this? Should Washington stick with Heineke for now, or should they pursue a Cam Newton in free agency or someone like that? Let us know using the Media app. The Media app is a virtual press conferencing app that I love to use. It's one of my favorite apps. It's great for fantasy football as well. You can trash talk your teammates, trash talk anything. So your opponent, the player got injured, you can give it to them. Their player put up 0. They started Brandon Ayuk against you. He barely played, and give it to him on the app. You can download it on the App Store or Google Play. And now let's welcome in our guests, Will and Jeff. Thanks for joining me again.
Hey, man.
All right. For this week,
it's not Wednesday night if we're not here hanging out.
Yeah. And for the discussions this week, we're going to do a little bit different format than what we have been doing in the past. We have 5 topics we're going to talk about. These are scenarios from week 1. There's narratives being written about certain teams, the Packers, the Saints, the Cowboys. We're going to let you know if we think it's just a 1-week thing or if it's going to affect the fantasy impacts going forward. So we're going to start with the biggest surprise of last week, in my opinion. The Green Bay Packers struggled on offense and struggled on defense. The Saints really gave it to him. Jameis Winston threw for 5 touchdowns. And Aaron Rodgers, he had a lower quarterback rating than points Jameis Winston scored in fantasy football. He scored 41.1 in my leagues, and Aaron Rodgers' quarterback rating was 36.5. That's one of his worst quarterback ratings ever. He really struggled, and the Saints really took advantage of it. Their defense looked great, and their offense looked good as well. I think they made the smart move starting Jameis Winston. I've been a Jameis Winston believer. I stated that before on the show that I think he could be great in this offense with Sean Payton there. And he proved that this week. I think that's definitely got to give the fans who have been give me some Taysom Hill. I think now that Jameis has probably pushed back a little bit, he's bought himself some time where if he does next week, say against the Panthers, he comes out only 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions type week, the fans will be like, all right, he still threw 5 touchdowns against the Packers. What do you guys think about the Packers going forward here? Should people be worried about Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones? What do you guys think?
I'll go with one because they're playing the Lions. They should be all right. So I will go with the Aaron Rodgers relax type thing right now. I think they'll be back. I think they were embarrassed. I think Aaron Rodgers was embarrassed. So this next game, I expect him and Devonta Adams to link up quite a few times. I think Aaron Jones also has an Aaron Jones type game. But there is something wrong with that defense. Other than Jair Alexander, their defense is they got rid of, I believe it was Mike Pettin, brought in somebody else this year, and they were not ready for prime time at all. So if the Lions actually start doing some of the things that they were trying to do at the end of the game, I know it was garbage time against San Francisco, but you never know what could happen if you got a guy like Jared Goff that can go ahead and just start slinging the ball, dump it off to Swift. It could be a tight game. It could be a tight game. I'm not worried about the offense. I'm definitely worried the panic meter is on the defense.
And what does our resident Vikings fan think about the Packers here? Want to get his input before I give mine here.
I'm going to take opposite side of RELAX, relax, right? And welcome to Club Pack, where nobody worries about anything this season. They're all checked out. They're planning their next trip. That's what, to me, when I watched Rodgers play that game, I saw someone who I didn't think was actually very motivated to play football. To be completely honest with you. He looked relaxed. Didn't look like he cared about anything. And the fact that he had to come out this week and have a open public discussion about getting hit where he got hit, that's not Aaron Rodgers who said, relax, right? Remember when he did the whole relax thing, it was very driven statement. Like you could feel it watching that press conference where he was telling everybody, hey, we got this. That's not the Aaron Rodgers I saw this week. So, I think their defense has always been suspect. A great quarterback covers up the stink of everything else. And it'll just be interesting to see. And the one thing I think, being an NFC North fan, is the Lions on the schedule usually can cure everything, at least for a week, even as bad as you're playing. And now that may not be the case this week because it's week 2 and it's a division game. But they, like Jeff said, the Packers should have a good game this week. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing they got to be careful, Aaron has to be careful, is these Packer fans aren't going to play with him. He's not Brett Favre, who a lot of Packer fans felt got pushed out, and they felt bad watching him get pushed out. I think Aaron has burnt all those bridges. If he has another 2 or 3 games like he had this week, it'll be interesting to watch what this team does. Are you really going to play Aaron Rodgers at home and he's getting booed? And that's coming. These Packer fans aren't going to play. This guy tormented them all offseason. He better deliver.
Yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers will deliver this week against the Lions. I think the Packers should easily win by at least 10 points this week. I'm expecting a big rebound against the Lions. I think their defense is terrible. Their corners are not great at all. They just lost Jeff Okudah as well.
And he wasn't good.
Season-ending injury. Devontae Adams should go off this week.
Did you see the Lions defensive coach yelling at him?
Yeah.
Right? That was – but on a real – a point of personal –
Randall L., a wide receiver. I was like, why is a wide receiver the DB coach?
Because the wide receiver knows exactly what a DB needs to do to be successful.
They do to a point. If it
he
was
also
like Troy
knows
Brown
how to.
Patriots, I can see that who actually played it, but Antoine Randall L.
But as a wide receiver, you know exactly what a great wide receiver is going to do to try and get open. So you can prepare the DBs better than some other people may be able to. I get that most of the time you want to coach the position you played, but sometimes it's not always the best. Sometimes,
Yeah, I mean,
I bet you he played corner A bit in high school. He probably played both ways.
He was
So,
a quarterback in college with
yeah.
Indiana. So, I mean, he was throwing the ball. I don't know. I mean, to me, if it's the Lions, you don't know what you're going to get from them anyway. So they're very unconventional with Dan Campbell,
Yeah.
But hell, they fought back. They made Detroit feel good. So who am I to
Yeah,
say?
they did fight back against the 49ers. Obviously, it wasn't enough. They got real lucky with one onside kick and didn't get quite so lucky with the second one. But yeah, I don't think
if that game's not a blowout by halftime, hold on to your hat.
I think as long as the Packers are winning, they'll be okay. It's a Monday night game. So if the Packers are up by a touchdown at halftime, I don't think it's going to matter too much. But we'll see. I think the Packers will win by at least 10. Be comfortable around 14 points. I think the Lions will probably score a couple touchdowns in the fourth quarter, garbage time after the Packers have already been up, kind of like they did against the 49ers. Because I think Dan Campbell's bringing that fight to the Lions, which is something I think they wanted to bring in with Dan Campbell. But I don't think Jared Goff can go out there, and I don't think he'll do what Jameis Winston did and outperform Aaron Rodgers.
Let me say, on a point of personal privilege, Sunday morning I switched one of my fantasy lineups. I took Jameis Winston out and I put Aaron Rodgers in.
Ooh.
I kept thinking, am I really not going to start Rodgers? I was drinking the Kool-Aid. Oh, he's going to have a great year. His last year in Green Bay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now let's move on to the next story I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Ezekiel Elliott in Dallas. Obviously, he did not live up to fantasy owners' expectations week one. And that's something I kind of saw that was going to happen. I thought it was inevitable. They're playing against the best rush defense in the league. It was fully healthy. They have great interior. The Cowboys were also missing Zach Martin on the inside, which led to Vita Vea absolutely demolishing the interior of the Cowboys' offensive line. They don't play the Buccaneers again, so I think that's beneficial to them. They don't have a great matchup this week. I can't remember who they were playing, but I was looking at it's not a great matchup again for Zeke. But I think that as the matchups start to get better, they'll game script more. They did lose Michael Gallup for a few weeks. So Zeke is going to see more carries. People were like, oh, my God, Tony Pollard outperformed Zeke. But that's because Tony Pollard was only on the field 15% of the time. Zeke was still on the field for the majority of the snaps. Tony Pollard came in and did a couple trick plays, misdirection type things because the defense was still focused on Zeke because they were both in the game at the same time. And I think that once they get away from playing Tampa, people are going to start to see Zeke be able to get some space. Zach Martin's back. They did lose La'el Collins, but I think Zach Martin is probably a better player than La'el Collins. So I think that impact on the offensive line is greater. And last week, if you were watching the game, it didn't matter if they were running or throwing the ball. The Buccaneers were getting pressure from the inside. And Vita Vea was literally just running up the middle, and they could not block him. So I think that the Cowboys knew that they were going to win the game by throwing the ball. Obviously, they didn't win the game, but they did come close because the Buccaneers' weakness in their defense is their secondary. So they took advantage of that. And I think that that's how the Cowboys are going to be competitive in games this year is they're going to do what they feel is best for the team. They're going to attack the defense's weaknesses because as an offense, they don't have a weakness. So I think that's something that benefits them. But what do you guys think about Ezekiel Elliott and the Cowboys moving forward?
I knew that he was going to have a tough game. You're going against some of the best and fastest linebackers in the National Football League. Devin White, I knew he was going to be, right on him wherever he was, outside, inside. So, I expected it. And it's funny watching people just, lose their minds about the type of game that he had. I was like, you know football and this type of defense that they have, it's built to stop the run game, So I don't know what they thought Zeke was going to be. I don't know what they thought the line was going to be because, this line is not like the Cowboys line of old. They still have some issues on there. They've got some great pieces, but they still have some issues. And I was expecting things to be put on Dak's shoulders, just like it was. I was expecting him to target. I didn't know Amari Cooper was going to play as well as he did, but I was expecting him to go to Cooper, look for CeeDee Lamb, and also use Schultz as a security blanket. So I was expecting it. If I would have drafted Zeke, I would not have started him this game.
No, I wouldn't as well. He was one of my sit candidates for this week going up against the Buccaneers. Any running back going up against the Buccaneers, unless it's a Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook-esque player, they're not going to be able to sustain that running back one numbers. And like I said, I would have probably benched Zeke unless I didn't really have any other options. He still did have 11 carries and he averaged 3.3 yards per carry. So it's not terrible. And I think with Gallup being gone, he will get more involved in the passing game as well. What are your thoughts on this, Will?
So, I'm in Dallas, right? So I can tell you, this is where kind of fantasy ruins football sometimes. Because everybody was drafting Zeke in the top 5, the expectations are unrealistic. I also think there was the expectation because everybody wasn't sure what the heck is wrong with Dak's shoulder. And honestly, watching that game, something's still not right with Dak's arm. Those long passes were struggling, right? As the game went on, I think the shoulder loosened up and the passes got better. But early in that game, he was struggling getting 25, 30 yards down the field, right? So based on all that, I think the hype was that they were going to run the ball. The NFL talked about you hear anybody say they got a top 5 offensive line. People just thought they were going to run the ball. So I think that was the expectation and why people were so disappointed. That being said, though, Dak threw the ball 58 times. And I thought one of the most telling things that night during the game was the analysis where they kept talking about the ex-wide receiver was on man coverage. And the Cowboys, when they see that, they're going to throw it. They're going to throw it. They're going to throw it. And that's exactly what they did. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Zach will ever have the numbers people think as long as he's with the Cowboys. There's too much other talent there. The Cowboys want to throw the ball. They put all their money in Dak. Pollard's cheaper, and he fits the offense better right now for what the Cowboys want to do. And that's just the truth. Zeke's greatest thing is he's a great blocker. But you don't pay him that much money to sit in the backfield and pick up the blitz. That's not what he's there. He's not even in the passing game now, right? I mean, I think people have to be careful. Pollard got more receptions. It wasn't just running. Pollard got the ball 4 times in the passing offense. Zeke didn't. I don't understand why the Cowboys have him on the roster. They should move him. I know they can't with the cap this year. But let's be honest. I think that game, yes, it was Tampa Bay. But that game was close. They didn't have to throw the ball 58 times. And they didn't even try to run the ball. They didn't. And I get it. The defense dictated go to the wide receiver with single coverage. But I don't think that's going away. I don't think Washington's going to play him any different. I don't think the Giants are going to play him any different. I don't think anybody in the NFC South. And then there's going to be games where they're going to have to throw the ball because they're going to be in high-scoring games because of the defense. So where does Zeke fit in a team that's not trying to run the ball? Honestly, if I was Buffalo, I'd probably give up a first-round pick right now.
I definitely wouldn't give up a first-round pick for Zeke. But I don't expect Zeke to have a monster week against the Eagles because I think that'll be a high-scoring game as well. So I think this is going to be shots for shots. So if you can convince the Zeke owner in your league and you can buy low on Zeke, that's something I'm interested in because I think he still does have a role in the defense. I think the defenses still have to respect Zeke and keep the linebackers in as opposed to going or nickel or dime.
But that Pollard gives you that. See, that's the thing.
I don't think Pollard gives you the same impact. And I think the Cowboys knew that. The Cowboys kept Zeke in the games more than they kept Pollard in the game. It wasn't even close.
Right, but the block. I think
it was 56 snaps to 12 or something like that for Zeke.
Right, but look what he did. He didn't even leak out into the flat. He blocked.
Yeah, because Zach Martin wasn't there and Vita Vea was literally destroying the inside of the offensive line. I think you're
Yeah, but-
underestimating the impact Zach Martin has on the right side of the line there because they have a new center, and without having Zach Martin beside him, that literally gives the strongest point of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers,
The
which is
best-
your interior.
The best way
down the middle.
to deal with an undersized defense that's fast is to wear them down and run it. That's what you do. And the Cowboys
The
didn't
Bucs
try.
aren't undersized.
In some ways, they are though. They're designed to attack the pass. Bucks aren't.
They're not though.
Oh, to me, they
They're
are.
interior and Dominican Sue, Vita Vea, they're both over 350 pounds.
Right,
Vita Vea
but-
is a
but
hell
they're
of an
big guys.
athlete for his
But
size.
they're big guys that put pressure on the quarterback. That's why they
Yeah.
have them.
But they're
Right?
big guys.
They're not
and
run. They're not. Sue's not a run.
They,
I mean, he's not. But he's attacks the quarterback. That's what Sue does.
yeah.
They're designed to get up on teams and force the other team to throw, and then attack them there. And that's what they did against the Cowboys.
Yeah,
Right?
but
Vita Vea, some of Vita Vea's biggest plays were in that fourth quarter, putting pressure on the passing plays. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you don't pay Elliott what you're paying him, and you don't use him at all. And
yeah, I think
that's
they
what
will
did.
use him going forward. I think the utilization changes because Vita Vea was 5 yards in the backfield, a second after the snap. And I think that's something that a team like the Eagles doesn't possess, a guy who's going to be able to do that. I know they still have Fletcher Cox. But I think they will run the ball with Zeke more. I expect him to do better. He still had 11 carries, which isn't terrible. It's not top, not Mark Ingram numbers or anything like that, but 11 carries is respectable. He's still going to be their red zone back.
If Dalvin Cook got 11 carries, if
Dalvin Cook and
if your guy in Carolina, geez, I'm getting old.
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. If McCaffrey got 11 carries and was another running back got more touches than him in the passing game, Panther fans would be irate.
That's because
Vikings
Christian
game-
McCaffrey excels in the passing game.
So we're saying Zeke doesn't.
Zeke was brought into the league as a runner. He has the ability in the passing game, but Pollard is the better receiving back on the team.
So I agree with you. In the offense the Cowboys are running, they're running 3 wide receivers,
Yeah.
spreading teams out, and I don't blame them. You have Cooper and Lamb, and you have a tight end. You have a good offensive line that can pass protect. You have a mobile quarterback. This is one thing the Cowboys have been criticized heavily here in Dallas about. Why did they give Zeke all that money? They shouldn't have done it. And I know it's hard for people, and because of our fantasy expectations, we don't want to admit that. The truth is, in this system, Zeke is not used correctly, and he will never have the fantasy impact that fans want him to have as long as he's with the Cowboys. That's just the truth.
We'll see this week because they're not playing against an easy
They're playing the
defense
Chargers
in the
this
Chargers. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we will see what
I think
happens. How they move Zeke.
I think Zeke will have over 15 carries. I think he'll score, and he'll have over 17 fantasy points this week.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think his utilization is going to vary on the matchup. I think he'll probably do better against the Panthers.
Yeah.
And then the Giants on the interior of their defensive line.
Yeah.
Their secondary is probably the strongest suits. I think they'll run there. And then they play teams like the Falcons. I think Zeke will go off against the Falcons, the
Everybody's
Raiders.
going to go up against the Falcons.
Yeah, so I think Zeke's going to be a matchup-based guy. But if you can buy low on them because people don't believe in Zeke anymore, and there's a lot of people who I've seen trying to trade Zeke, and they've just fully given up on him because they had the high expectations, they were let down. So I think it's a situation to monitor. Obviously, there's different levels of concern. If Zeke doesn't do good the next 3 weeks, then I'd probably start to react. But we'll see now that Michael Gallup's gone because he did have a significant role in the passing game as well.
Sure.
So we'll see going forward. Let's move on to the next topic here. We have the 49ers in general. We're going to touch on the backfield as well as the receiving core. So we'll start off with the 49ers backfield with the Raheem Mostert injury. We had the emergence of Mitchell in the backfield, who a lot of people really like coming out of college. I debated drafting him in my dynasty leagues. I've opted against it, which now I regret. But they also have Trey Sermon, who they didn't start because Kyle Shanahan said he didn't perform well enough in camp to earn to be on the active roster come game time. So we'll see going forward. I think Trey Sermon will eventually win the job back. They did trade up for him in the third round, so obviously the team still believes in the talent. He just didn't have a great camp, whereas Elijah Mitchell, he did have a great camp. But I think the 49ers running back, unless there's a one guy who like Raheem Mostert when he was playing, he's going to see a majority of the carries. I think they're going to be more of a running back by committee, like they've shown before with the Tevin Coleman and all that when they had Jeff Wilson who was running in some. Jeff Wilson would have a 28-point game. Next game, Tevin Coleman would go off, and then Raheem Mostert would go off. I kind of expect that kind of approach again from this running back with Trey Sermon, Elijah Mitchell. And then eventually when Jeff Wilson comes back, he'll jump right back in there. They also have Jermichael Hasty, and they just signed Trent Cannon off waivers. So that's another name just thrown in there. They also have Kerryon Johnson on their practice squad now. So I think they're going to have a crowded backfield that I would probably stay away from in fantasy. For the moment, if you can get by low on Trey Sermon, I expect him to be the biggest impact come fantasy playoff times. But with all the injuries that always happen for the 49ers, I'm for the most part avoiding it. But what about you guys? You guys have any confidence in one of these guys, or are you staying away?
I had Mostert in my starting lineup in most of my leagues.
Yeah.
I thought I thought that 49er offense was primed.
Yeah.
And they showed up. And if he would have stayed healthy, he probably would have had more points than Mitchell had, truth be told.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because he's really he's a great running back. He has all the intangibles you want to me, especially in fantasy, because he's gonna get the touches, he's gonna be on the field most of the game, and it's a shame that he went down. I'm glad he made the right decision for his career though, to make sure he didn't get the surgery and get taken care of and don't try to rush back. And it's interesting, Zach, like you said, it's something about the 49ers and their running back. I know every team has kind of like a merge area like the injuries, but remember Jerick McKinnon got hurt both 2 years, and McKinnon I thought was going to be a great player for the Niners, right? And got hurt twice, and then so you start to wonder: is there something in their training with the running backs? Is it just bad luck? I guess time will tell. But it was such a shame to lose him because I think he's a great fantasy running back, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And I'm gonna come in close to this. Raheem, when San Francisco lets you go, you don't even have to go too far, man. We're looking for a number 2 running back. Just come on down to Seattle. We'll treat you right, man. We'll take you out, get you some seafood, man. We'll take you down to the Fisherman's Wharf, let you catch some fish. We got a spot for you, baby. We need a number 2. Rashad Penny's gonna be gone, so just come on down to Seattle, man. We will accept you with open arms.
I think he'd benefit from being a number 2 as well, not having to deal with the heavy workload that he was getting. So we could see that happen eventually. But as for the 49ers backfield, stay away. I know a lot of people put a lot of number 1 waiver claim on Elijah Mitchell, or they put a lot of their fab dollars on Elijah Mitchell, and I wasn't going to do that. Sure, if you can get him for cheap or whatever, absolutely. I think he's going to be serviceable for the next 2 to 3 weeks.
That's the thing. I think he's going to be serviceable.
Takes over. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be great. I don't think he's going to have he might have one really big week. That the 49ers like to do that with their running backs, but I'm not expecting anything big. But let's move on to the bigger story in San Francisco right now with the Brandon Ayuk situation. Kyle Shanahan ripped on him for not being regular in practice due to injuries. And saying he needs to perform better and be regular practicing if he wants to get more playing time. He didn't have a single catch against the Lions, and there's a lot of people who started him because they fully believed in him. He had the second-year hype. People thought he was the number 1 target on the team. I was pretty confident that it was going to be George Kittle and then Deebo Samuel and then Brandon Ayuk. But that's pretty much, other than Deebo Samuel had a huge week, George Kittle didn't. I think that'll change going forward too. I think George Kittle's still the best target on the team. And once Trey Lance takes over, I don't think anything changes that way. I think he'll love to target George Kittle. and I think he takes away even more from the running game. But what do you guys think on the receiving core and the Brandon Ayuk situation that's happening right now?
It's a little disturbing how he called him out like that. I know Clint Sheffield, I think that's it. He actually looked good in camp and he looked good in preseason. But I don't trust any receiver other than George Kittle. And it's almost like the running backs. There's no dominant wide receiver on that San Francisco 49ers team. I do like Debo, but when everybody was, throwing Ayuk out there, I was just like, they're going to dump off the ball. They're going to run the ball more than they're going downfield. And then you never know who the guy is, just like with the running backs. I remember last year it was, oh gosh, what's the guy's name with the colored hair? He would have a big game. He's no longer there. There was just a bunch of different guys. It would just switch off who has a big game. There's no real number one wide receiver there. It's Kittle. That's it. I'm just like, I really don't trust, the receivers for San Francisco. So,
I think Kyle Shanahan doesn't care about fantasy impacts. He cares about what's best for his team. So he's really going to ride the hot hand. Lucky for him, he didn't choke the game last week because the NFL community, the fans would not have let him living down choking another game.
Right.
Hey, let's talk about Kyle real quick because so he's calling out Trey Sermon, he's calling out Brandon Ayuk. So at what point does this rub the team the wrong way? I know there's a lot of pressure on him this year, and there is, rightfully so, on Shanahan. But it's weird when a coach starts, especially when that's not really his personality, right? I mean, Mike Ditka calling somebody out, everybody kind of expected it, right? Back in the day. That's not, to me, not who Shanahan has been, right? He's
been the players coach.
Players coach, right? So he's called out two players, now young guys, but he's called them out. And so I just wonder if there's a little bit of a rift in the team. And then what happens if Trey Lance keeps looking good? Right now, you got a coach that's kind of smashing players. Now you start maybe injecting a division in the locker room over which quarterback should be playing. 49ers better keep winning because
there's pressure on them. And that's what I don't think people realize. In this, that was great. A great start, but it was against the Lions. Wait till they start seeing some of these
bad second half too.
A bad second half, exactly. Everybody keeps thinking, well, they pulled out the starters and yada yada yada. Still, Detroit actually moved the ball a little bit on them. They scored in the game, so I'm just like, I think he might be feeling some pressure now.
They also lost Jason Verrett.
Exactly.
Secondary.
Exactly. That secondary was already had people a little, like if you're going to go after them through the air. So I think he's got some pressure. Maybe that's what's causing a lot of this stuff.
I think he's calling out the younger players, and I honestly don't disagree with him calling out the younger players because sometimes it sets a fire under them. And as the coach, you need to be in a position where your players respect you. And if that's like there's coaches who can call out players, and there's coaches who can't. So we're going to see if he is one of those coaches that can because he has the respect of all of his players. And he has the respect of the locker room. So we'll see how that turns out. But let's move on to the surprise team of the week. We're going to move on to the Saints here. We have some fantasy implications. Jameis Winston, Juwan Johnson, Adam Troutman, Marquez Callaway didn't look too bad, but he didn't perform very well. So the Saints, obviously, they upset the Green Bay Packers. Jameis Winston had his 5 touchdowns. Kamara looked great. Tony Jones got his carries. And then in the passing game, Juwan Johnson had 3 catches, 1 for a touchdown. As high as I am on him, I'm not jumping to make him my starting tight end anytime soon. He did only have the 3 targets. I still think Adam Troutman will probably emerge as the number 1 tight end on the team, with Juwan Johnson being important to the team in the red zone until Michael Thomas comes back. I think Johnson can fill that Jared Cook type role from last year, being the red zone guy for the team. And Jameis obviously loves his big targets, so that benefits him as well. But I'm not jumping to make him. I'm not going to drop my tight end to make Juwan Johnson or Adam Troutman, anything like that. But one guy to monitor in this situation is Marquez Callaway. I know Jeff's in love with Marquez Callaway. He had a great preseason. I'll let Jeff talk about Marquez Callaway, but you just got to make sure on the waiver wires if Marquez Callaway was dropped, because he was dropped in a couple of my leagues. It may be a situation you want to monitor and pick him up because Michael Thomas is still out. And if he doesn't do good this week, next week, okay. But I think he's still got the ability to turn it around. So he's a guy I'd monitor on the waiver wires, look for him. But Jeff, I'll let you take this away.
Yeah, and this was less about Marquez Callaway, and it was more about Jameis Winston. That's why I'm like, if you drop him, you're going to pay for it later on. This is one thing, like I was telling people at the beginning, Sean Payton is a quarterback whisperer. This was a totally different Jameis Winston.
It was.
This was the same Jameis without the turnovers.
Because
the same Jameis without
the
the
defense
turnovers.
gave him. Exactly. This is Sean Payton saying, don't force it to Marquez Callaway with Jair Alexander draped all over him. Take what the defense gives you. And that's exactly what he did all game. There was one issue. One time he actually went back to the old Jameis, but that was it. But this was more about Jameis Winston doing what Sean Payton wanted him to do. If there's an opening here, run. If there's a guy there's a mismatch, get it to that guy. And that's exactly what he did. Go with the shorter passes, set up the long, deep pass to Deontay Harris. They just played this game perfectly. That's all it was. And that's what I was going to say. He actually did the same thing last year. I believe the first game of the year was either against Tampa Bay or the Falcons, but they came out the same way where they were prepared. That was it. And now Drew Brees is a great quarterback. The last few years, not so much. I think they actually have an upgrade in the quarterback position right now. As long as he goes ahead and listens to Sean Payton, plays a more subdued, smart game where he's able to make decisions to just take off and run if there's an opening there like he did. The Saints could, with their defense as well, man, who knows what these guys could do, man.
People were surprised by how well Jameis performed, and I really wasn't, because we saw he has all the talent in the world. He's got the arm talent. It was just a decision-making, and I told people that Sean Payton can get rid of that. People thought Bruce Arians was going to get rid of it, but he really didn't have enough time. And Jameis last year taking the deal to go to the Saints instead of competing to start somewhere is what really proved to me that Jameis wants to change and he wants to make it in the league as a starting caliber quarterback. He wants to be a franchise quarterback. And I think he's bought himself some time with the fans where the fans aren't going to be giving Taysom Hill anymore. I think Jameis Winston proved to the fans after they upset the Packers that he's their quarterback going forward. And I'm excited to see what this team can do. Obviously, they're playing my Panthers this week. So I think the Panthers defense will probably disguise some coverages, try and make Jameis confused. And if they can get some pressure on, maybe confuse him a little bit, we could see a couple turnovers again this week. But we'll see. Will, you have any thoughts on the Saints going forward here?
Dangerous team. Scary good, to be honest with you. Completely scary good. And the best thing that may have happened to the Saints was not having to play in New Orleans week 1. Because you didn't have the crowd and the pressure of the crowd waiting for Jameis to make a mistake and then start booing and chanting for Taysom Hill.
And also, Aaron Rodgers sucks in Florida. I think his record's 3-14 or something. Right. I saw something where the Saints picked that stadium because they knew Aaron Rodgers is terrible in Florida games.
Smart.
But the Saints, that couldn't have worked out better for them.
No.
honestly, because Jameis, if Jameis hadn't done well, okay.
Yeah.
But it allowed him to go out there for Jameis and be, I don't have 50,000 fans rooting for the guy that they think they want.
And I think the Saints
That game put everything to rest. Unless Jameis has a bad game at home, there's no way those fans are going to be chanting for Taysom Hill.
I think they kind of went under the radar somewhat in the offseason, other than the Jameis Taysom experience. The defense wasn't really getting talked about, neither was the offense outside of Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that benefited them as well, because Sean Payton had the ability to get the team focused and get the team prepared, as Jeff said, because they were really firing on all cylinders. The defense was working well, even though they lost some key pieces, which shows to me a great coached team. And the offense worked well together, which showed a great coach team. And this is something that some people expected from the Patriots once Tom Brady left. But this is Sean Payton has been able to do it once Drew Brees left. So we'll see if that continues. I think it will. And I think the Saints can compete for a playoff spot with teams like the 49ers.
The people most upset about the Saints winning the way they did Sunday is the Cowboy fans. Because they were hoping that maybe there'd be a partner in the Saints and they could fire McCarthy. But now, I mean, if the Saints look this good all year, they're not changing nothing. That coaching staff and front office will be in place for the next 5-7 years.
Yeah, I think the Patriots fans are upset, by the way. The Saints won too, because that's what they wanted after Tom Brady, and that's not what they had. So I saw a lot of upset Patriots fans because Jameis Winston was available last offseason, and the Patriots have had a couple miscues with Cam Newton getting COVID and Jared Stidham, and now Mac Jones, who did look good, but he didn't win them the game. So I think the Patriots fans are also kind of upset at the Saints as well. But as I said, I knew they were going to be good. I just didn't quite expect them to be that good.
The thing the Saints do have a problem now, I think the one problem the Saints have now that became very obvious is they're going to have to pay Jameis, and it ain't going to be cheap. Because
if he continues to do good.
We
still got a long season to go.
Dude, if he seems focused, he seems like he wants to play football and he's not distracted by the hype. Right?
Yeah, that's something that's gone from him now as being a former first overall pick. The hype was there, and he sat behind Drew Brees last year, and the hype kind of disappeared for him, which I think helped him as well. But let's move on to the next topic, which is someone who we all really believed in, that I think the coach kind of screwed up the way he handled this first game. And the team looked terrible, offense, defense, nothing was really clicking for them. And in my opinion, their best offensive player was sidelined for half the game. We're going to be talking about James Robinson here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was actually out-touched by Carlos Hyde, who we all know is past his prime. And in his prime, I don't think he was as good as James Robinson was last year. And Urban Meyer was just riding with his Ohio State guy. Trevor Lawrence looked okay. He didn't look great. He had a couple interceptions, and defense was terrible. They got beat down by who I thought was the worst team in the league, the Houston Texans. So if I'm the Jaguars, James Robinson needs to be on the field more, needs to see more touches, because that's what's going to allow Trevor Lawrence to be a better quarterback. If you try and establish the passing game without establishing the run game, that's going to be extremely hard on a rookie quarterback with all the expectations that they have going on right now for Trevor Lawrence. If they can't establish the run game, which they won't be able to do with Carlos Hyde, this isn't going to be a fun season for Jaguars fans, and it's not going to be a good season for Trevor Lawrence as well. We've seen bad rookie seasons ruin quarterbacks before, and I don't want to see that happen with Trevor Lawrence. The Jaguars need to give James Robinson the ball. Urban Meyer, if you're watching this, give Robinson the ball. Even when he doesn't have the ball in hand, when Trevor Lawrence threw the interception, I don't know if you guys saw the video. I was floating around on social media. James Robinson was on the complete opposite side of the field, and he chased down the defender to stop the touchdown. It's not even like what he does with the ball in his hand. It's what he does without the ball in his hand. He's a great teammate. He's a great player. And I think Urban Meyer made a huge mistake putting Carlos Hyde on the field as much as he did.
But that's the thing about Urban Meyer. He's stubborn, very stubborn. And that's what cautioned me about James Robinson. Great running back, even better person, as we found out last week. Mm-hmm. But when they drafted Travis Etienne, I was like, there's something about James Robinson that they do not like. I don't know what it is. I don't know what he's done. But Urban Meyer has his guys, and he's stubborn. And I think the best thing for the Jaguars right now would be if Urban Meyer would take the USC job and just go away. Certain college guys need to stay in college. That's the whole thing. I knew this whole thing wasn't going to work out when they made the hire. I was like, this is another notorious bad Jacksonville Jaguar hire. They went for the splashy hire and didn't go and get somebody who can actually build a team that is built for the NFL and could win. Eric Bieniemy, exactly. Who I hope just goes and takes the USC job. So Urban Meyer sit here and let this franchise go further into the ground. This was an experiment that was not going to work. He's going to ruin players as well as the franchise. And I don't see it changing.
Extremely disappointed if Eric Bieniemy went to the USC job, because I think he's earned his chance to be the head coach for an NFL team. Urban Meyer came out and said he's not going to take. He's committed to the Jaguars. But if Eric Bieniemy takes that job, what does that say for the NFL? Because he's been the offensive coordinator for the best offense in the league for 3 years now. He's had multiple head coaching jobs. Is it a problem with his interviews? I don't know what's going on there, but
I can guarantee you, Bieniemy, if Chicago and Minnesota play like they did week 1 all the way through the season, they'll both have job openings. And I can tell you right now,
last year,
either one of those teams will take Bieniemy. If I was Chicago, I'd be already lining up the interview.
Yeah,
Bieniemy
Nagy should have been gone last year. Bieniemy, right. As soon as they got Justin Fields in the draft, Bieniemy should have been their head coach. Like, obviously, you didn't expect that to happen. But to develop a young quarterback, you want to have a strong offensive-minded head coach. And Nagy, to me, last year did not prove that he's going to be the guy in Chicago. The play calls weren't good. He gave up play calls, didn't help. So I think that would be a great fit for him, the Vikings as well. But the Jaguars need to get –
I thought the perfect fit was the Texans. I mean, the whole thing with the ownership probably wouldn't have been there.
But Jeff, the ownership in Houston, there's no way Bieniemy could function with that ownership structure and the way the owner interacts with the players. Bieniemy needs to be in a place kind of like Kansas City, that the owners are going to be kind of you just do your stuff, right? And
but I'm just looking at it from a personnel standpoint. Can you imagine him, especially if Will Fuller would have stayed, Deshaun Watson, and whoever else that might have followed him over there?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, man. I was like, that offense would be amazing. And that's what I like about him. He's got the type of personality that I think he would find the right person to build the defense for him as well. I was like, they would be the perfect team to actually give Kansas City fits. You know, it was just like, what are you guys thinking by not even bringing this guy in for an interview?
Yeah, because if he went, no matter where he goes, I expect him to bring, kind of like Robert Saleh did, bringing a guy from quarterback's coach from the 49ers with him. I think he'll probably do something like that if he gets the job. He'll probably bring one of the Chiefs' assistant defensive coaches over, which is going to be perfect for that kind of thing. I think I would have liked to see him get the Chargers job.
That too.
His offseason. But obviously he didn't. So this season, I think a place for him would be the Bears. I think they're going to be looking for a new head coach. There's a couple other teams that are going to fire their coaches, but if he doesn't get a job this offseason, I think there's got to be something wrong with why teams don't want him, because at that point, I don't think it's a coincidence that teams don't want him. Because he's got the
Well,
resume, and
let's
he's
look at the
what
teams,
every
though.
team's supposedly looking for.
But I think here's the problem for Bieniemy.
I'll be right back.
There's an obvious problem, but we're not going to jump into that. I think the other problem for Bieniemy was the teams didn't line up. Like the openings just didn't line up correctly. Like you said, Chicago would be stupid. Chicago would be the stupidest team in the world not to hire Bieniemy to put with Justin Fields.
I get what you're saying with the Chiefs being in the Super Bowl each year. It's really hard for the interviews to get set up and for him to commit to a job because half the vacancies are already filled midway through the playoffs.
But the teams themselves weren't the right DNA organizationally to appreciate Bieniemy. Right? Even the Chargers, right? It made sense. You're stealing him from, if anything, you're taking him from Kansas City. But the ownership does not reflect a team that's willing to take that risk. Or that make that, I shouldn't say risk, but make that decision to bring Bieniemy in. Right? Where I think Chicago is the right ownership. I think Minnesota is the right ownership. I think if Pete Carroll retired, Seattle would be the right ownership and said, let's put him with Russell.
Bieniemy in Seattle would be great.
Oh, my God.
Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf. Ooh.
If you want to talk about a coach that could go back to USC, don't put it. I mean, Pete Carroll, he's getting older. Maybe he wants to go back. College is a little bit easier, less stress.
He's still pretty spry for a 70-year-old man. When I'm 70, I want to be as active as Pete Carroll.
Right, but warmer weather in California.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think he leaves Seattle with the Russell Wilson being there. DK Metcalf, I can't see him leaving unless he's going to retire.
But back on James Robinson.
I think a guy who people aren't really talking about for the USC job that wasn't a bad NFL coach, but he was a terrible NFL GM would be Bill O'Brien. I think he might be a possible fit. He's got the offensive mindset. He was a good coach. Yeah. He just struggled when he got all the power. Yeah. He made some bad decisions that led to him being out of Houston. So I can see him possibly taking that job as a way back into the NFL.
Well, SC's job isn't the draw that everybody thinks it is anymore. There's a reason why they got stuck with after Pete Carroll left. They've kind of had the coaches they've had. That's a hard job. Are you really going to give up the guy at Cincinnati or the guy at Penn State? You are safe and secure right now. Yeah, SC could pay you more money. I'm not sure I'm walking away from Penn State to go take that pressure cooker at SC because that's just it's not the job that everybody thinks it is. It's not a bad job, but it's not Alabama. It's not Texas. It's not Florida. It's not Florida State, right? It's a hard job right now. And I saw the story today. They said maybe the Oregon coach. Why would you leave Oregon with all that money from Nike and complete control? You're Oregon's coach. No one's mad at you. You win, you're good. That's a pressure cooker in LA, and especially with UCLA starting to come together.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a hard job to walk into USC because if Chip Kelly does well this year and does good, he should control recruiting now in Southern California. Because if I was a kid in LA, I'm probably going to go play for Chip Kelly before I play for SC right now. Because I don't know what the heck is going on there. I don't know if I want to walk into that SC job right now. That's a hard job to take right now.
I just got a call from a friend of mine that is a Ravens fan. They said they would like to thank John Harbaugh for all he's done for the Ravens, but they would love to get Eric Bieniemy in that coaching job.
Wow. You can't. Ravens fans should not be saying that. I don't want to hear that. John Harbaugh has been an amazing coach for them, and I think he puts them in a better position to win than Eric Bieniemy would.
Let me tell you, you missed the conversation. I said, I wonder if Pete Carroll at the end of the year decided, maybe I would go back. Now Pete Carroll
would be ecstatic. I would paint myself blue and green.
There you go.
That happened.
You hear that? You hear that, Seahawks? He would paint himself blue and green if Eric Bieniemy becomes the head coach. So we're going to keep that in mind if it happens.
All right, let's move on to the social media post of the week here. This was a funny one. It's from the game of the week. Probably the game of the year, in my opinion. The Raiders and Ravens game. If you watched it, you obviously know what happened. The field goal kick that put the Raiders to tie the game to send it into overtime. Then the Raiders drove all the way down the field. They had what they thought was the touchdowns ruled down at the 1 yard line. And then Derek Carr throws the ball to Willie Snead, smacks off his helmet, and bounces into the hands of the Ravens defender. The Raiders did end up winning the game due to a fumble from Lamar Jackson. But Willie Snead tweeted out, apparently I obviously can't catch now, but we're still 1-0. And Derek Carr pretty much said, stop. It was a bad throw. I could have done better. But let's prove him wrong. And I think it's funny to see people were making fun of Snead for not being able to catch. But it wasn't a great throw. Still probably should have caught it. But I like to see Derek Carr coming out and saying, bro, like, calm down. You're good. You're still going to see – I still trust you. You're going to see the targets. And it's the leadership from Derek Carr, who stays as one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league. And I can't handle the disrespect Derek Carr gets anymore. Him and Darren Waller are amazing together. And I'm excited to see them throughout the season. I hope, for Derek Carr's sake, he leaves the Raiders soon and he goes to a team where he can actually flourish with proper weapons around him and a proper defense that isn't coached by John Gruden.
Cousins for Carr straight up. Actually, I'll give the Raiders a 3rd-round pick in Cousins for Carr straight up tomorrow, week 2. Okay.
Gotcha.
Carr's a good.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the Raiders getting the 3rd-round pick, and then you guys would have to extend Carr, obviously, so he'd be making about as much as Kirk. But I think Derek Carr's probably a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins, so I wouldn't be against that if I was a Vikings fan for sure. But I would not love Darren Waller as much as I do right now if Derek Carr wasn't there, because Darren Waller, who is the best player John Gruden ever coached. I don't know if you guys saw that, but John Gruden came out and said Darren Waller is the best player he's ever coached.
Tim Brown and
amazing players.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Charles
he
Woodson.
said Darren Waller has the speed of Jerry Rice with amazing route running as well. So we're going to see the Darren Waller-Derek Carr connection this year. The Raiders would be stupid to let Derek Carr go anywhere. But their fans have been on and off with the Derek Carr love, the Derek Carr hate. So for Derek Carr's sake, I hope he gets out and he goes to a team that needs a quarterback. If Tua decides to do terrible for us this season, Mac Jones screws up. Those are 2 teams who could use a quarterback that have really good defenses and the offense around them already.
Washington.
So Washington as well. Yeah, Washington wants Fitzpatrick.
Washington.
I think Heineke can win that job.
I agree with you. I think Heineke's going to surprise people.
Yeah, I think he can win that job going forward. And when Fitz comes back from injury, I don't think Fitz comes back.
Ryan is on his way down.
Yeah, the Falcons, but the Falcons don't have a good defense. So I don't think Derek Carr puts them in position to win. I think they'll be better off to rebuild with a young quarterback instead of bringing in a guy like Derek Carr who can help you win now.
He'd be an interesting fit in Denver.
He would, yeah. Denver would be good for him too.
An interesting fit.
That's what he reminds me of, a better Drew Lock.
He's a much better Drew Lock, but
much better Drew Lock.
As a quarterback for the Broncos staying in the division, Derek Carr has proven he can go and beat Kansas City. So if you bring that to the Broncos roster with all the talent they have right now, and you give them a quarterback that's proven to beat Kansas City with a worse team, does that make the Broncos competitive with the Chiefs record-wise to win the division?
Well, that's one thing that Carr has never had is a good defense. I'll take that back. When Del Rio was there, when they went to
they had they had
a
one good
decent
defense, and that's when Carr
exactly. And
got
that's
injured.
what got them to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But the reason why Raiders fans, it drives him, he always does make that one play where it's like if he makes the play, they win the game, everything's great. But he'll do something that's kind of like, oh my God. But that's the Raiders as well. So,
I think that comes with
The
being
Raiders.
a Raider. I don't think
Yeah.
that has to do with Derek Carr. I think that's kind of the Carson Wentz type problems he had in Philly that I think he'll get away with is Derek Carr's got to do everything on that team right now.
True.
If he can't throw it to Waller, he's got to do everything else. Waller's been the only guy who's like, oh, now he's got Waller. You can just toss it to Waller every play and they'll be fine. So yeah, we'll see. I think the Raiders surprised people on Monday night. They surprised me as well. They should have won the game, and then they shouldn't have won the game, and then they should have won the game, and they did end up winning it eventually. It was a really great game to watch. So people were mad at me because I had them ranked over the Broncos in my power rankings week 1, and I think they proved that they are a competitive team going forward. So we'll see. I want to thank you guys for joining. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the show this week. We'll be back again next week, talking some more fantasy, talking some more football. So thanks for watching, and I hope you guys tune in again next week.